You ever feel like the world is heading in the wrong direction, like something isn't going quite right? Well, if so, then it's probably not by accident, because behind the scenes, global elites are working on some pretty terrifying shit. So here is what the world could look like in 2030. Of course, unless people rise up and say enough is enough of this madness, we are not going to take this crap lying down. First, let's talk about climate lockdowns. Now, conspiracy theory currently, but potentially conspiracy fact in a few years. And they're already talking about the plans for this. Hear me now, quote me later. Serious global concerns for climate lockdowns are real, and they are starting to brew. The World Economic Forum has, of course, graciously provided us with information about how lockdowns actually affected global pollution levels, with the impact on global temperatures actually short-lived and minimal, just 0.03 degrees Celsius. They say, oh, look, we need to find ways to reduce emissions without, of course, economic and social impacts of lockdowns, and of course, then to find solutions that also promote health and welfare and equity. You know what they are really planning here is that, yes, we're still going to use lockdowns as a potential method of control for carbon emissions. That is, if you let them do it. Because in a recent Pew Research study, a whopping 80% of participants said they would be willing to change how they live and work to combat climate change. And they will use this goodwill of people wanting to do good against you. Billions complied, of course, with pandemic lockdowns, so they're assuming people will for this as well. This is a scary new tool for global elites to deploy, outlined even further in their article about fighting the next threat: air pollution. And look, to be clear, we all want to have a better, cleaner, healthier planet with thriving biodiversity, but we should be highly suspicious of any initiatives put forward by shadowy cartels of unelected elites. Our very real concerns about having a healthy planet for our children to thrive on and to live on and to grow up in can and will be co-opted by corporations and others for their own benefit and against your benefit. Now let's talk about hyperinflation, aka the government robbing you of your savings and your future. Fun stuff. This is a curse that has affected people in many countries, but could be coming to a fiat currency near you in the not so distant future. You know, simple inflation, it's already a thing of the present, but concerns have taken a leap into the hyperinflation territory now. Soaring energy bills are, of course, the biggest culprit, driven partly by the war in Ukraine. Then there is the runaway rise in fuel prices, not to mention the upsurge in global food prices and increased costs of raw materials, really just across the board. And add in the effect of climbing interest rates on mortgage payments, squeezed salaries, and a worldwide economy trying to claw its way back from a pandemic, and you have a perfect storm. That, of course, was stated by the WEF back in June. But there's no need to panic, because your currency will never be worthless and meaningless. Right? Well, the latest in the long list of countries affected by hyperinflation, joining names like Argentina, Venezuela, Sudan, Iran, Lebanon, Zimbabwe, Suriname, Yemen, is actually Turkey, which is dealing with an 80% plus inflation spike this year as it tries to combat hyperinflation by reducing interest rates. Now, Turkey's a big deal. It's the 19th biggest economy in the world. If it can happen in Turkey, it can happen anywhere. Hedge fund giant Elliott warned in November that hyperinflation could likely lead to a global societal collapse. Chill out there, Elliott, guys. Holy cow. Stating that markets have not fallen far enough, the world is hurtling toward the worst financial crisis since World War II. Holy cow. It also added in that the extraordinary period of cheap money is coming to an end, and it has made possible a set of outcomes that would be at or beyond the boundaries of the entire post-World War II period. Elliott also blamed central bank policy makers for the current global economic situation, saying that they had been dishonest about the reasons for high inflation. Blame everything except the central banks, who are the ones who actually did a lot of this stuff. They said that lawmakers had shirked responsibility by blaming it on, supply chain disruption caused by the pandemic, instead of actually citing the loose monetary policy imposed 2 years ago during the pandemic peak. Of course, and that monetary policy largely favored insiders like Wall Street. The silver lining to the hyperinflation hell that we could potentially be facing by 2030 is that it could likely lead to a massive boost in stocks and Bitcoin. So yay for that, I suppose. So you're going to be locked down to fight climate change, your money's going to be worthless, but at least you're going to have a job, right? Well, let's talk about the coming AI unemployment crisis. One of the big reasons why the World Economic Forum wants to put everyone in boxes that they can control is because artificial intelligence has become an imperative for companies across industries. They don't need you anymore. They're preparing to replace the majority of people with artificial intelligence. So from a business standpoint, it makes great sense. From a human standpoint, it kind of sucks for regular people. In 2018, there was in fact research by the WF. Every damn time, WF of course has their fingers in this stuff, don't they? Anyway, they are suggesting that up to 30% of existing jobs could be at a potential risk of automation by 2030. Pretty soon, right? That's right across the spectrum, from truck drivers, which are being replaced by self-driving trucks, accountants, which are replaced by AI computers, retail workers, ever going to a fast food store, well, they have this computers there now, right? This is great for governments, because they're going to be able to boost economic growth, therefore they get more tax revenues, but flip side is the WEF is banking on this enabling social safety nets, including state health and social care systems, to be strengthened for those who find it difficult to adjust to new technologies, aka making you more dependent on governments. Saying it's going to be okay because we'll just make sure states take care of you if you do what we say, if you play by our rules. We made the crisis, here's our solution that you have to play by the rules for. And this is where we make our transition to talking about central bank digital freaking currencies. With everything else moving digital, of course, no surprise that the CBDC conversation is still ongoing. It is something we'll be talking about a lot. So over 12 weeks, the New York Fed recently designed a wholesale CBDC prototype, connected it into a blockchain network. It also simulated foreign exchange spot transactions with counterparts using similar ledgers. Now, this is not just the USA testing out central bank digital currency. Nope. Dozens of countries have announced their intention to launch CBDCs. But Lark, won't CBDCs just be so convenient? It's gonna be so great. My money's all gonna be more digital, more useful than before. Yeah, sure, that's how it's being sold. But it's also gonna be scary as hell when you realize the implications of this technology. See, fully programmable money allows our ruling class to do a lot of nefarious crap. They get to decide how much you can spend per transaction, how much you can spend per month, how many times you're allowed to transact in a month, where you're allowed to spend your money, on what you're allowed to spend your money, if you're even allowed to spend your money. Remember, don't go and do any wrong thing on social media like questioning climate lockdowns or any of that stuff. Your account will be put on hold. And a CBDC can even be programmed to expire if not used within a certain period of time. If you don't think that governments are going to use those tools and to implement this technology within CBDCs, then you have not been paying attention. So to sum up, by 2030, you might be facing climate lockdowns. Your money could be worth dramatically less than it is today. You may have lost your job to a computer, and CBDCs might have been rolled out to fully control who, what, when, where, and even if you are allowed to spend your money. Can we all just agree to not let this crap happen? Come on, seriously. Part of the reason why we Bitcoin is to resist this exact scenario. Don't lose sight of the big picture here. Don't. Okay, that's it. Subscribe now. See you next time.